Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I am your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Remi Willems, who goes by Remi the Gardener on Instagram. And he's a awesome person to chat to. I've spoken to him a couple of times and loved it every time. And it was a pretty cool hit to hearing how he started. When I asked how he started in the industry, and spoke about how he did a drawing when he was in kinder, saying how he wanted to be a gardener. So I love it when people do that and then end up in the career that they manifested early on. It was really good to talk to Remy to get an understanding of what it's like working on high-end maintenance projects, and he started in it quite early, and then also went into Stonefields because he's still only young now, but he went out to Stonefields and worked there for 6 years, which is quite an experience for someone working in maintenance. And now he's starting to carve his own path as well, and he's got a pretty exciting plans for the future with the coaching, the hedging coaching that he's looking to do, which I think is an awesome idea. So definitely someone to keep an eye on in the future. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Remi Willems. Remi, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Oh, I was just one of those weirdos that wanted to do this ever since I was a kid. There's a drawing in my nan's and pop's house for when I was in kinder that when I grow up, I want to be a gardener. There's me, my nan, and my sisters, and there's just like hoses just drawn everywhere through the garden. So I think I was always destined to do it.
Was your nan, did she do a lot of gardening?
Yeah, yeah. My nan's always been out in the garden. Mum and dad have always been in the garden. So sort of, yeah, just evolved from that.
Yeah, I remember my grandparents, like on my mum's side, they had the most phenomenal veggie garden. Like the soil was like black because it was just
Yeah.
so much organic matter in there. Yeah, and they grew amazing things in there. But and that like I knew that before I started landscaping. I knew how good it was, even then. So it's one of those things you don't think about it at the time, but then after you've lived a bit, then you think back to those memories.
Yeah, definitely. And like my nan and pop's house, like they bought that for their first house. And like my granddad passed away last year, but he built that house pretty much and they've built the whole garden. So it's pretty cool to see. Like he's put all the concrete edges in, all the old 70s style volcanic rocks as
Yep,
edges.
we had that. They
Got
had that exact
yeah,
same thing.
yeah, they've got all that in, Noble Park. So it's just it's good to go back there and see that they built everything from the ground up. But yeah, and then I think it was last year or something, my nan tripped over and smashed her head on one of those rocks. It looked like a murder scene. So it's just another story to go into a big garden like that.
Yeah. So with knowing early, like when did you first like start working in it? So I think I've heard you started when you were 15. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So I started when I was 15. I was looking for Saturday work. I was working at Hungry Jack's after work, but I wanted
I'm
to
getting after
start.
teaching one actually, coincidentally.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
to
like
whip
it
it
anymore.
up.
Um, but nah, I wanted to get into it on Saturdays and that sort of stuff. So one of my sister's basketball teammates had a neighbour that was a landscape, what I thought was sort of a landscaper. So I got in contact with them, and he sort of said, I'm keen for Saturdays, but not this Saturday. I'm sort of booked out. I said, yeah, no worries. And he actually rang me. His name was Ross Anderson. He rang me Sunday night and said, can you work Mondays? One of my apprentices is at trade school. I said, oh, I'll ask mum and dad. But yeah, they said, yeah, go ahead. So it started from there. I started working every Saturday and actually every Monday until the school cracked the shits and then made me get doing a school-based apprenticeship. But as I said, I thought it was landscaping, but it turned out to be like high-end garden maintenance. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting into it. I always wanted to be a landscaper, but I fell into this and ended up loving it.
All right. And did you do much any landscaping within the maintenance as well? Because I know a lot of maintenance people do, like those the clients say, "Why here? Can you do this as well?" And so it's sort of
Yeah, yeah. So Ross Anderson, he was a landscaper by trade, and then he evolved into garden maintenance as well. A lot of his jobs he built, in the 80s and 90s, and then we continued on maintaining. So yeah, we did a lot of, I'll probably, as everyone calls it, the soft scaping, like the paving, irrigation. I say soft scaping, but my boss never believed in excavators. So we used to fill up skip bins like with wheelbarrows and shovels in Toorak and clay and bring in all new soil. And we had a big builder that we worked for, Royale Constructions in Toorak. So we pretty much did all the site cleans, absolutely everything, and then installed all the garden irrigation, paving, but all the concreting and all that stuff was done, which was good for us. But yeah, we did a lot of landscaping as well.
yeah, right. And so and then did you go on and maintain those projects as well?
Yeah, yeah. So pretty much, I think they had a bit of a deal where like you do a few months, obviously, to continue on with the maintenance, but most of those jobs we just continued on forever and just kept going with them.
And do they blow your mind early on, or do you not appreciate the houses? Like, because I look at houses
Oh,
and it's ridiculous. Some of the ones we
I,
work on.
I was shocked. As I said, 15 years old. I'm in Hopeton Road in Toorak, which is one of the most expensive sort of streets down there. And these houses, oh, it was like a whole street, one of their blocks, back down in Langy where I grew up. I was just amazed. I worked till 7 o'clock that night. We worked in Hopeton Road, then went to another landscape job for this Royale Construction. I was moving rock and soil till 7:30 at night because we had to get it off the street. And yeah, it's just I can still remember the first day, and it didn't slow down from there.
Yeah, my first day, I went home. I got home at 4 o'clock and fell asleep on the couch, which I never
Yeah,
did before. Yeah, it's hard work.
yeah, yeah. No, I loved it, all that sort of stuff, and I opened my eyes. I couldn't even push a wheelbarrow at 15 with rock. So it was sort of quarter wheelbarrows. All these boys are passing me with full wheelbarrows, but I had to learn pretty quick.
Yeah, I still tell people now and then when they first start that you won't believe how much heavier, like after they're pushing some barrows, you won't believe how much heavier a barrow of concrete is.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And then the weight, as soon as you hit a ramp or something slippery, you just go down and you're wearing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and on my literally first day, I hit my thumb with a hammer, like putting a nail in, like it was a cartoon.
Yeah,
So, yeah. I often have to think back to that how bad I was when I started when I put new employees on. That yeah, everyone starts out pretty useless.
yeah, yeah. I have to laugh looking back. We were a pretty young crew at Anderson's. I think the oldest guy at that stage was 21, Aaron, and I was youngest at 15. There was about four or five of us. So we're working in these $15 million at least properties at this age. With Ross was in his late 40s, early 50s, so he was, you know, trying to keep us all in line. But yeah, it's just funny looking back where we sort of come from and what we did and what we could achieve with such a young crew back then.
Yeah, I love that you went there while you're at school as well. Like you were able to take a day off school. Like I've heard of people because their kid hates school so much they'll let them have a day off a fortnight or whatever. So it's good that there's these flexible arrangements to start to come in. So did you
Yes,
finish school while you're still working there?
yeah. So I started that early 2010, which was I was in year 10. And then, as I said, the school board started cracking the shits because I was taking unnecessary days off. So that's when my careers teacher got me to sign a school-based apprenticeship. So it was Mondays working. I think Wednesdays or Thursdays I was at trade school, and then pretty much work every Saturday. And then as soon as my exams finished, they weren't really exams in year 10, but I finished them. I had a week off and I started full time 2010 then when I was 16.
Yep. So you didn't finish VCA?
Nah, nah. Mum and dad said if you get an apprenticeship, you can leave school. I was good at school. It was just a classroom. I didn't like being in there.
Yep. Yeah, I'll do the same with my kids, like because they're the same as me and they couldn't hate school anymore.
Yep.
But they need to find what they want to do. You can't just leave because you hate school. You actually need to find something, and not just like I've had people apply for a job I'm advertising at the moment, and you can see they're left in year 9, and then they go and work at a cafe, and
Yeah.
like yeah, maybe they want to be a chef or some famous barista, but they're probably just hating school, so they're just looking for something else. But work is a lot harder than school.
Yeah, definitely. And it sort of changed since when I started when I was 15. My boss said the same thing. He said, "You're the last one that I could treat how I've treated all my apprentices." Because we were so young, he sort of treated us like the same of his three boys, which was very hard. He was a tough bastard, but like far out what we got sprayed for. But he said to me, "I can't treat the young kids like you anymore." But I saw that as a problem because I know how I grew up, how my dad drills me and like drilled me back then. And it can't happen anymore, which is a shame because it just doesn't teach you anything. Like there's no respect, there's no work ethic. It's just so hard these days.
Yeah, you can tell like it's different based on where people are brought up a lot of the time. Like there's obviously exceptions to every rule, but I like employing people who are from not like in the CBD, like not from Melbourne or from in Geelong, but more like my two qualified guys are both from regional Victoria. And you're kind of in the same boat,
Yeah.
sort of Mornington kind of way. So yeah, I think it's just more of a grounded upbringing that teaches you more about respect and work ethic.
Yeah, definitely, and definitely. Like my dad's a painter. He worked for his dad when he was started when he was 15 or 16 as well. A family business, and I used to get in trouble when I went to go on his job sites by his supervisors for having my hands in my pockets. Like, where's that these days?
Yeah, I remember my dad telling me off because I'd go to work with him in Melbourne. Like he was a dry cleaner, um, and he'd get me working. I'd get paid for it, but then like I'd work pretty hard, but then I'd sort of stop and have a rest, and that's when his boss would come around. He goes, "Don't stop when the boss comes around. Just keep working."
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I was exhausted because I think I was like 12 or something or 13 at the time. But yeah, it's yeah, but like I often hear people talk about the younger generation and they start whinging about them, but it's exactly the same for people who were talking about like me and my generation. It's exactly the same. People were saying that um, people watch too much TV when the TV was the only thing, and now people are on their iPads too much, but now it's the
yeah.
iPads, and yeah, it's exactly the same. Just keeps repeating itself, and there's something that changed slightly. So. Yeah, that's again something else I need to kind of think of when you think, oh, it's the generation, but you've got to think that they're all like that. So you've got to adjust yourself to them. So after how long did you work there with, was it Ross? How long did you work with him
Yeah,
for?
I I worked there for 6.5 years. And then that's when I started my Stonefields journey with Paul Bangay.
Yeah, so how did that come about?
So when we used to work for Ross, we were sort of the go-to company for the Paul Bangay Gardens, especially rurally and the high-end sort of hedging. So we would travel all over Victoria, just doing a lot of the hedging. Like the Paul Bangay Gardens probably have their own gardeners, but we would do the more bigger hedges and get them right, sort of 3 to 4 times a year in some of these properties. And Paul Bangay's Stonefields was the same. Before a big open day, we would go up and help Tim the gardener at Stonefields, where he's been there the whole time. But yeah, we'll come in, stay in the bed and breakfast next door, and do about 4 or 5 days, and just cut all the box hedges and help Tim out. And that's how I met Tim. And then yeah, a couple of years later, he offered me a job at Stonefields next to him.
And how old were you then?
Must have been about 22 or 23, I think. So yeah, it was. I was having a bit of trouble at the last company. I had a bit of an issue, a bit of a falling out with the boss. So that was probably the right time to jump at that time. And I had a holiday booked and that sort of stuff. And it just, yeah, eventually it just led on to taking the job. And I really couldn't say no as well. If it didn't work out, it was good on the resume anyway.
Yeah.
And I do live, like, I love living rurally and I've always been out in the bush and that sort of stuff. So it actually just worked out well that I could leave Melbourne, live rurally, and just give it a go. And it just worked out so well that I was ended up being there for 6 years as well.
Yep. So what was it? Was that intimidating when you started working there, or was it okay because you knew you were familiar with it?
I was familiar with it, and like Tim knew what I was capable of. That's why he wanted me. So it was just easy to just transition into that. And as I said, working in Toorak and Portsea and Flinders and all that sort of stuff, I was running jobs when I was 18 with apprentices under me. So because I was qualified then, so I knew what we needed done and what to expect and what the clients expected as well. So it just, yeah, it was just easy, just transition straight into there. The hardest part was moving out of home. Like I get along with my family very well, really close with dad. So that was the hardest part, was leaving home, leaving all my mates, leaving, going to the pub every Thursday night with your best mates. And my girlfriend at the time, she was in Lilydale. So we only really saw each other on weekends. And then I'm moving 2 hours away. So it was pretty hard, but it's been the best move I've ever made.
Yep. Because you're still living out that way now, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I moved out here in 2017 and rented by myself. And then me and my now wife found a 10-acre property that we bought in 2018. So now we're, building our sort of house and our sheds and veggie gardens, and the wife's got the horses. So it's just worked out so well because, as I said, if we lived down in Melbourne, where could we get 10 acres close to like Langwarrin, Frankston area? It would just be shocking, the traffic. So it's actually worked out really well.
Yeah. What you would have spent on your property now, you probably get a 300 square meter block with no house
Oh,
on it.
yeah, definitely. Like we've doubled our equity since we bought here in 2018.
Yeah. And you see yourself staying out there for a while though?
I'll never move back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a few offers, a couple of the big companies down in Melbourne. When I left Stonefields as well, our good mate Ashley James, he even offered
Which,
me a job, which was good.
but haven't heard of.
You look him up.
Okay.
Yeah, which is good. Like when I was leaving Stonefields, I had a few of those offers, but I just couldn't go back down to Melbourne, the traffic and everything. I do miss the quality of the jobs down there, and the density of how close you can do. Like you can have six beautiful properties in one street,
Yeah.
whereas living rurally, as you know, the jobs are a bit further apart. But I could just never go back to the traffic and the hustle and bustle.
So what was a day like at Stonefields compared to like the projects that you're doing beforehand? Like when you say you were working on like travel around doing Paul Bangay's projects, would you regularly do the same ones, or were they sort of like twice a year kind of thing?
Yeah, those sort of things was about twice a year. Where with the Anderson boys, we had in one street we had 10 properties. So we were the high-end garden maintenance sort of company. And he had three utes and three trailers. So he was about six or seven of us boys plus him. So there's about four utes and three trailers getting around Toorak or the peninsula every day. So some days we'd only do one job if it was a big property in Toorak, and some days would have seven or eight jobs, just the blowing, the mowing, cleaning the gutters, high end hedging, all that sort of stuff. So we did all that. And then going to Stonefields was very different because as Tim explained to me, he said, he told me to, well, he said slow down, which didn't mean slow down. It was just take your time, do the job 100%. Whereas when I was in Melbourne, it was always, well, do what we can with the time because we've got another four jobs to get to. Whereas with Stonefields, it didn't matter what we did. It didn't matter what we did the day before because we could pick it up the next day. Whereas in Melbourne, we might not be going back there for another week or a fortnight or a month. So that was the biggest thing that it took a while for me to get used to was just settle down a little bit. It's going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, that's the kind of a fine balance because like working on high-end projects, like you want to take your time and do it properly, but you also need to get to the next one because you don't want to push them back. So
That's
yeah,
exactly right. Yeah, and especially like Ross, he knew he had too much work, but now being my own boss, I can see why you need that much work. Is if something happens, or winter, it does get a lot quieter, or you could lose two clients in when they sell their property. You two big properties in a week, so you can see why we'll busting our balls for him back then. But yeah, it's when you're working at one place like Stonefields, it's you do get to appreciate what you can actually achieve in a day and the next day.
yeah, and you can have more sort of long-term things that are achievable as well. So because you can do it, like you could do something and you need to go back there in 2 weeks, whereas at your other projects you might not be able to get back to them. So yeah, it makes sense that you'd be able to do that sort of progressive work.
That's exactly right. And when there was a crew of six of us as well, you might get it's not against the other boys or anything like that, but they see little things differently, or they could be getting their ass rained by their boss, so they were rushed. But you'd get the garden looking really good, and then you wouldn't go back for say a month or a month and a half because I'd been stuck on the peninsula or something. You get back, you're like, oh shit, all my hard work sort of done,
Mm.
been undone. But yeah, it's just that fine line of trying to get it up, doing the best what you can do, and just speaking up as well. That was my biggest thing was approaching the clients or Ross and saying, no, we do need to spend a day here, or they've got a party coming up, or it's just, yeah, talking to people was the biggest thing as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's an important one is not just sort of letting things go if you know that it's wrong
Yeah,
or at least making the suggestion. Like you could say, I don't think we should do this because of X, Y, Z, and then at least everyone's got the information, and then they can make your boss or the client can make that decision. But yeah, but that's something you're not going to, especially being young, you're less likely to have that kind of opinion.
yeah, which he taught us really well, which was good, was always knock on the door. So as soon as you get there, you knock on the door, what do you need done today? Or you give them a list. We're going to do this, this, and this if you need anything else done. Or it was also just a respect as well, old Kathy's not in her robes or walking around the kitchen starkers down the back. So it was taught us that as well. But it's just yeah, building the relationship with the clients was the biggest thing as well because it's some of the gardens you're there every day, every Monday for a whole day for two or three people. It's a lot of money at the end of the year and a big contractor for the boss, which was
Mm,
good.
yeah. So, and what was the equipment like that you used there compared to when you went to Stonefields? Was it the same?
Pretty much the same. I've say to a lot of people, I'm a still nut. I love still. I've got my granddad's steel chainsaw. I've always watched dad use it, so I've always done the same. And I've got trail loads of steel stuff, and I collect old steel chainsaws. And so Stonefields had all steel equipment as well, which was good. So just smooth transition straight from there to there.
Yep.
So that was easy. But yeah, now I've started going to the steel battery equipment, which has been really good too.
Yeah. Did they use much battery at Stonefields?
No, like I'm I'll say it, I was very against it because I thought the weights weren't down where they could have been compared to some of the equipment we're using. But now using the battery every day, most days, what I'm using for all the hedging and stuff, it might be a tad heavier, but the vibrations aren't in there through your hands anymore. And it's really good, the battery gear now. So I'm a pro battery now.
Yep. And are the batteries all within the like hedger and whatever you're using, or are some of them? Because I've seen there's backpack battery
Yeah,
packs and they've got a
yeah,
cord going to it.
yeah, yeah. So my English Buxus hedger, which I just use for Buxus for like 1 or 2 seasons, and then I'll pass that down to cut other stuff so it doesn't tear. That's got a backpack and the umbilical cord they call it. But most of the other hedges have just got the battery in the motor. Then you remove it, put it on the charger, but you can buy an adapter with the umbilical cord as well, so you can put the weight onto your backpack. I've got like a camelback, steel camelback with the cord, which is really good to do hedges and that sort of stuff if you're
Is
bending
it,
down all day.
does it take a bit of getting used to get cord out of the way?
Yeah, it does. You can sort of twist it, and it's got a couple of sort of loops. You can sort of hide it around your belt or behind your back, which is handy. One of our mates, you've had him on the podcast, Andy from Leaf by Leaf. He messaged me, asked me about battery the other day, and he said, "I've just got this," and the next photo was a cut through the cord.
I was just going to ask
So
if you did that.
yeah, so it does happen. I've heard, but yeah, something to be careful of. But I have heard that a couple of the corded models are coming out with the battery attachment later this year, which will be handy as well.
Yep. I one of my very first boss I worked for, we were building a boundary fence, and I was checking out the posts, and it would have been handy for me to have a battery circular saw for doing that because his circular saw didn't have a cord after I finished with it. It's just
Yeah.
we went through it, made a pop noise, and next thing you know, it doesn't work anymore. So everyone cuts through cords occasionally.
Oh, that's it. That's it. That's why they invented joiners back in the day until you weren't allowed to use them.
No, it's just you just put a new plug on it. It's got a stubby tail on there. So
That's it. Yep.
got planers with that and all sorts of things. But yeah, I love the battery stuff. Like more so like what we use for construction. But even just was it today or yesterday? I bought a little Makita hand hedger. So it's a two-part thing where one of it is it's like got a almost like a palm shaped with a scissor action on the end of it. They say that's for
Yep.
cutting grass, which is a bit weird.
Yeah.
But it's also got an attachment for it's got a really short, like a 250 mil hedger on there. So that's what I'm because I'm no good with the actual shears for shaping balls. So I'm just using that one, and
Yeah.
even longer. Yeah, I just can't. It's amazing how easy people like you make it look to shape the balls when
It's
you
a lot of
actually
practice. Yeah.
yeah when you actually go and do it yourself. You think, oh, I had no idea it was this hard.
No, it's amazing that because like the hedge clippers aren't that heavy in the scheme of things. Like
Yeah,
a couple of kilos that you're holding, or less. Sorry, like the new Japanese ones are so light, but it's that constant holding for the whole day. And you find a lot of people they take chunks out because they're bouncing the shears, which most people learning do that because they want to try and chip into it. But yeah, it takes a very long time to build up sort of it's even just the muscles to hold them there the whole day. It's funny because you wouldn't think it how light it is, but it's true.
yeah. But even just the fact that you're closing your hands together and trying to keep it in an accurate spot, like you're trying to cut the exact part. Whereas because if you close it slow, it's not going to cut through. It just sort of bends it over. Well,
Yeah,
that's if you use blunt ones like me. But yeah, I had no idea. But especially starting one, like if it's got the shape already, it's not as hard. But yeah, initially starting it blows my mind how hard it is.
and the biggest thing as well, like we made all sorts of different bits at Anderson's to get the hedges straight or the balls round, or even at Stonefields, Tim had some awesome ways of getting the balls around. Like we used 19 mil or 25 mil poly pipe and sort of bent them into loops. So we had 10 different sizes because Stonefields had that many different size balls, and we just pick and choose which hoop. And that, because that's pretty much perfect round, you could use that as a template. And it just, yeah, it takes all the guesswork out.
So do you use that just for the sort of outer diameter, or do you sort of turn it on the side a bit and
Yeah,
all the
yep.
way
So,
around every
yeah,
shape?
out of diameter, and then sort of like the from the top profile as well, all the way down to the sides. Because a lot of the balls I find their belly's really wide because they haven't been cut hard enough around the sides, so they're not
Yeah,
really balls anymore. They're sort of like fish tanks.
yeah. They're just curved
Yeah,
structures.
yeah, that's it. Then they just get called clouds after that.
Yeah. I heard you talking with Luke, and you were talking about some Japanese shears that you've got that are curved.
Yep.
So do they sort of curve down, which helps you do that curve, or
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was actually shocked how quick it actually makes it. So instead of like you sort of think about it with a round ball, you've just got the straight shears cutting like sort of this much with every close of your hedge clippers, where with the round you can actually get around a little bit more. So yeah, it's just a lot quicker, and just the quality of these Japanese tools is just amazing. They just really know how to make a good tool.
yeah, it's weird why other people don't just. I assume they do copy whatever they do to make them such high quality. Or maybe it's too expensive to do it, but yeah, the Japanese tools get there. A lot of people are big fans of them.
Yeah, I've always been a bloke that just uses what they've got, and we always did that in Melbourne and sort of at Stonefields as well, because we don't have shops close or anything out there. It's half an hour drive to the hardware, so we've always used what we've got. But now, sort of getting a little bit older and a little bit smarter, trying to use some of this different equipment, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, like if you're using some shears that are going to reduce the amount of times you have to close it by half. That's over a day, doing a day full of hedging. That's a big difference.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So when you're at Stonefields, were you like, because I went on a tour out there. I think it was just before you started working there actually, but the bent grass was just would blew my mind because I'd never seen it before.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, had you seen it much before? Like and looked after it?
I'd seen a little bit of it, and a lot of some of the gardens in Toorak were getting sort of private lawn guys to do some of their grasses in Toorak as well. So we come across it a bit and spoke to a few of the companies, and then Ross, my boss back then, was trying to get a golf course greenskeeper into the company as well, which that didn't really work out. So we had seen it before, but I hadn't worked with it as much. But then, yeah, going to Stonefields and how Tim does it, and how much he's researched and got all the turf guys in from like superintendents and that sort of stuff, and learnt from them. It was really cool to see.
So is that a running grass as well?
Yeah, yep, yep.
And do you have to treat it any differently to like a fine cooch or anything?
Probably not such as a fine cooch. It does get a lot of fungal issues and that sort of stuff. Needs a lot of top dressing, and so, which is pretty much the same as cooch. Like it's a lot harder to work with than like say your tall fescue and your guy QU and that sort of stuff. You got to be a bit more sort of diligent with it. But yeah, it was cool to learn that from Tim up at Stonefields.
Did it take a while for you to get to mow it, or was you getting on that pretty quick?
He got me onto it pretty quick because so he could actually take a holiday and not sort of be too worried.
Yep.
But after that, I didn't do it too many times because we sort of had we sort of was Thursdays was mowing day at Stonefield. So Tim would be on the cylinder mower and I would mow and brush cut a few different bits, and then I'd go on to doing some other maintenance. So that was sort of Tim's thing, which worked out well. I could get some other jobs, we would call it the tick off the Paul jobs for the day. So Tim could go do the lawns and I would do Paul's jobs. So by the time we got there Thursday afternoon, ready for Friday, there we looked good and they were all done.
So was it just once a week that you do that it need to be mowed?
Bent grass in the growing season probably should have been done twice a week, like on a golf course, but we just didn't have the time to be able to do that up there with the scale of the garden and the B&B next door, and all the hedging. So it just got treated the same as what the rest of the garden did with what the time we had.
Yep. And you use a plant growth regulator on it for that?
No, we never tried that. We actually had a bottle of it up on the shelf Tim got just before I started, and we actually never tried it. But now I've been chatting to a lot of turfies on Instagram and all that sort of stuff on social media, and it's amazing to see it actually how well it actually works.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, someone you mentioned on Luke's podcast who you speak to is Sean from Pure Turf Lawns and Gardens, and he
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
after a lot of our projects to get maintained. And it's insane what he does. Like when I tell people, like they say, "Have you got someone who can maintain it?" I said, "Yep, there's Sean. His garden's pretty good, but he's a wizard with a turf. Like he's
yeah.
just this stuff he knows about it is insane, and he's got tall fescue. I think it's growing at maybe like 12 mil or something. He's got
Oh,
a
that's amazing. I love seeing that that he puts up on Instagram. I need to go down and spend a day with him. I chat to him all the time on Instagram, but there's a new job he just got that Paul designed. She actually contacted me and I passed on his name.
Yeah,
So I'd love to go see that garden and see a couple of his really good turf jobs as well.
yeah, that's in Birregurra. Is that right? That one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It looks like a ripper job that I was feeling I didn't live close enough,
Yeah.
but lucky him.
Yeah, because that's one of those things. Like you could, if you're doing a design, it's you can travel, or if you're building a project, you could possibly, travel to go and do it. But maintaining something regularly, like you don't want to be traveling. Like, is that probably
No,
2 hours for you?
yeah, yep. She did ask me about just doing just the hedging. And I said, yeah, that's something I can do. But I also said to her, with a garden that big, that beautiful, that expensive, you probably want somebody that's a gardener like me that's got an eye and wants to look after it better than your own house there full time, or like 1 day a week or 2 days a week, whatever he's there for. So passed on his number, which it seems like it's working really well.
Yeah, yeah. It's so awesome to see those gardens get looked after. Like
Yep.
it's a joy for other people to get to see them as well. So not just the homeowner, but people who post about it
Yeah, and
and
it's especially like for you as well, landscapers that actually build it, you can actually appreciate going back a couple of years down the track and see all your hard work, what it's become.
yeah, that's why I like Sean looking after him as well because he's just yesterday he sent me a photo of like some their steps with the risers. They were Lingisera as the
Yep.
riser, and
Yeah.
he sent me a photo because they were growing really well, and we only finished at the end of last year, and they're just about solid. So yeah, but I like just seeing the updates from him.
Yeah. Well, that Lonceria, that grows 3 centimeters a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know, like that wasn't my design, so I don't. I like the Bucks' idea rather than that because it doesn't grow as quick.
No, no. And yeah, it sort of depends, isn't it? Like if you've got a bit more space, the Buxus. If you're very confined, the Lonceria, definitely. But yeah, if you can in the landscape, if you can add a bit more space, at least yeah, the Buxus a bit slower.
Yeah, yep. Um, So what? How did you end up at Stonefields? Like finish up there? Like what was the?
Well, it, we did hear a couple of rumors that it was going to go up for sale, and it did obviously end up going on the market. And it was sort of I've always wanted to run my own business. I've had some really good offers, even when I was 19, down in Melbourne, of getting loans, like personal loans from some of my clients to open a business. So it's something I've always wanted to do and give it a shot. And it just felt right. I'd done 6 years in Melbourne, 6 years at Stonefields. I wanted a bit more money. I wanted to give it a shot. Just got married, thinking about having a baby. Well, it just felt right to do. And I was working every Saturday. I would work 3 nights a week after Stonefields, hedging, garden maintenance. I had a lot of work and I had a lot of people kicking and screaming, asking, when can you actually maintain my property full, like a day a week? So it was just the right time.
Was it like sad to leave there, or were you just excited because you got to actually get your teeth into what you already sort of started doing?
I was a bit of both. Like I loved Stonefields. I loved working with Tim, loved working with Paul. So it was a bit of a shame to go, but it just felt right. It felt like a good time to do it. There was no hard feelings. It was just, yeah, like, I can give it a go now.
And what business name did you go with?
Uh, I haven't really had to do a proper one. It's just under Remi's gardening services for the, put it under the
Hey,
tax and that sort of
yeah,
stuff. But I do need to open a proper one. The tax lady said properly, but it'll be something with Remi. But I don't advertise. I got no advertising, nothing on the Utes or trailers. Everything's just word of mouth. How I get my jobs. So yeah, I don't really need a proper business name, but if anything, Remi's pretty unusual, so I'll go with something like that.
yeah. Yeah, I tell people that like the business name, if you're starting out like cold turkey, it can be important to get your jobs. But
Yep.
if you're getting referrals straight away, and then eventually the business name doesn't mean anything.
Nah, nah. My first boss never advertised. Obviously, Paul is in a situation where he doesn't have to advertise these days, and I'm the same, which is awesome. Yeah, it's just word of mouth, and it's the right clients most of the time that are contacting you. It's not, oh, saw your ute out the front. Can you give me a quote? And you know it's not going to go anywhere. And especially in your situation with landscaping, you can spend 20 hours on quoting and not get the job.
Mm. Yeah, I'd got recently some people ringing up saying, "Oh, I just found your number on the internet." That is a I should just hang up straight away because it never works
Yeah,
out well. Every now and then
exactly.
they do though, um, but yeah, it depends what part of the internet it's from. If it's just Google, then because otherwise it might be they have seen something and then they search you up on the internet. Um, but how are the when you say it's word of mouth, like where's that starting from? Like how did you get a recommendation from Birregurra?
That was through Paul, obviously. Paul has said, Remi used to work for me, give him a call and have a go. There's another job Paul's designed in Trentham that's getting built by a Dalesford landscape company at the moment. So I'll get that maintenance as well. She's rigging me every week. She's very excited to get that done and get me maintaining it. That's one thing that Paul has got me a few jobs. But a lot of the jobs I got were sort of, I'll call them cashies back 7 years ago, 6 years ago, doing a few hours after work, after Stonefields. And most of them have just come from that. A couple of nice guys in Trentham and Dalesford and just started from that.
Yeah. So with if there's a project getting built, you're going to maintain. Like, are you popping in there, sort of seeing where they're running irrigation lines and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff?
Yeah. And I'm liaising with the clients from the start because my biggest problem that I run into with landscape builds, doesn't matter if they're 20 years old, a couple of years old, is irrigation. And as you know, if the irrigation is not right, it could be the best landscape design or the shittest landscape design. It is just not going to work.
Mm.
It's just not going to work. Obviously, drainage is a big thing as well. But if the irrigation does not work or isn't not adequate, just kiss the garden goodbye. So I'm getting get into their ears very early, talk about bores or how I want the irrigation. A lot of the time I'll ask them to put, if there is a water tank, I want the irrigation ran off a pump off the tanks because you can't trust the mains water a lot as well if the pressure's not there. So at least you can put a float valve or something on the tank and work from there. So you've got a bit more to play with, a bit more pressure, run more heads and that sort of stuff. So getting into their ear about that and just just making sure that the quality's up there, or if I can pick anything or plants and say, look, actually that's not actually going to grow there because of the shade, or try and problem solve before I have to fix it down the track.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot easier to move a plant before it's put its roots down than
Yeah,
after.
and it's you're not telling a landscaper or as you know what to do. It's sort of you're working with them. You're not going to the owners or doing any of that. You're actually just working with them as well because it helps their company as well because that's their next piece that they're going to advertise or could lead on to a lot more work as well.
Yeah, I got a good relationship with Reese Irrigation, and they
Same.
it would have been maybe 7 or 8 years ago now, but they said, "Ah, will you be interested in going out to projects and troubleshooting irrigation that people have come with a problem?" So I could not think of anything worse to go out
Oh
and find. Just go out to a job, you got no idea where anything is, and just try
no.
to work it out.
Oh, the solenoids are buried. You don't know the pipes. It's today. I was out of the job. It's sort of we've got it sort of mid last year, and he asked me a couple of weeks ago, "Can you fix the lawn?" Took me 3/4 of the day to fix 6 stations, and then I went back today and started it again. And because the ground was so dry because it wasn't working properly, there's more leaks now that I've found because they're bubbling up. And this company has put in 90 mil poly pipe, which okay, it works all right, but they put 90 mil poly pipe in a rocky area. So they've obviously trenched and landscaped and then filled everything back in with the soil, which is all full of little rocks. I've fixed another 7 holes, I think, today where the rocks have just worked their way into the pipes with
Yeah,
the
right.
mowers running over it, traffic, wheelbarrows, all that sort of thing. And there's just holes everywhere because of these tiny holes piercing 19 mil. Whereas if they went PVC or even like 25 mil blue line or 25 mil rural, like the high density, you'll never have that issue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that there's so many different ways to do irrigation. Like
Yeah.
if you were doing garden beds, do you have a preference over like risers or drip line?
I'll 100% say rises, 100% every time, because you get an even spread. It doesn't matter what you're like the soil quality, you know what you're going to get. With drippers, people hit them with shovels, they block up. Sometimes if you've got bore water or anything like that, I'm a big believer for drippers for maybe like tree rings down driveways or long hedgerows. There's no problem with that. But new garden beds, especially how the landscaping's going these days with like the perennial borders and that sort of stuff, sort of European the sort of spec where they need a little bit more water sometimes. You just can't beat a proper irrigation system with, Hunter MP rotators, or I'm loving the Rainbird R vans at the moment.
I couldn't disagree more. I hate the risers. Okay. It's
Oh,
so easy.
really?
Yeah, it's so much easier doing drip line, like just because you can send it to all the plants.
Yeah.
Whereas we're doing one at the moment with the like risers, and yeah, it's just I find it difficult to get all the plants and have them at the right height, and yeah,
It's,
it's
de- it's definitely got it's hard because yeah, as you said, as the plants grow, you got to add some risers sometimes, and then especially when you're designing it as well, you go, holy shit, there's a big ass tree that I've just craned in here. How the hell is it going to get around? But yeah, sort of the more coastal gardens and that sort of stuff, you can get away with it a bit more. And the different like the wistringias and all that sort of plants, obviously you can get away with the drippers. But just yeah, the 15 years doing it, the overhead sprays, you don't need to guess if the drippers are working because you can just visually see you've got 100% coverage sometimes as well. But yeah, like definitely the drippers have got their place, but I find the overhead sprays are really good.
yep. Have you had any people ringing you up wanting to do work and like have you been able to knock back work yet? Because you don't really want to do a certain style or not certain projects.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of guys that ring me about hedges, and I just don't like their demeanor on the phone or anything like that. And I'll say, nah, no, thank you. Try somebody else. Or
Yep.
it's the funny one, whereas the last guy was too expensive, so I'm ringing you. Like, okay, mate. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, and I'm starting to get to the stage now where I can pick and choose the bigger sort of jobs or the pool designs or the I've got a big garden in Ballarat that I'm sort of helping implementing a little bit of Ian Barker design. Ian Barker's designed a 2 acre block for me over there and for the clients. So we're doing little bits and pieces on that. I'm there every Wednesday, but yeah, just doing sort of the stuff that's going to be there long term, like the hedges around the boundary, couple of fence lines, and then down the track we'll get the pool done by a landscaper and all the bigger stuff. I'll get a landscaper in to quote all that up. But yeah, I'm trying to chase those big gardens now.
Yep. Was there one you were doing for Ashley James out your way?
No, I'm actually going to go see Ash hopefully Wednesday next week. He's recommended me, but obviously the client's got to choose me in the end. But I'll go sling some shit at him Wednesday next week, hopefully when I see him. But that's coming up really nice. I saw it before the plants went in last year, so I'm really keen to go back out after he's had the delivery of plants and go see it.
It would
That's
probably
just
look
out of
worse because he doesn't know what he's doing with plants.
nah. Oh, did you see him this week wearing a white shirt while planting? What is that guy thinking?
That's just what his talent agent tells him to wear for the photos.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd love to know how long it takes to do his makeup every morning.
That's why his face is different color skin to his arms with all the makeup he's got on. So you were talking about how you've always used still. So um, are there any things that you've got that aren't still because still don't do it?
I've purchased it's called a Waybang rear roller mower. I bought that last year, so it's a rotary mower, but it's got a roller at the back, so you get the stripe. Sort of, it's not as advanced as a cylinder mower like you'd see shorter stuff using, but you can use it on a lot of rougher sort of lawns. So a couple of the nice properties I've got, the lawns aren't suitable for a cylinder mower, and and they're big lawns as well, so they don't want to use a cylinder mower twice a week or top dress it so it's perfectly level. And a lot of the properties have sticks and stuff dropping on them. So with the cylinder mower, you can't hit that because they blunt really quick. Whereas I've got this Waybang mower which I bought last year, which has been really worth it. I've got actually got I think two jobs from photos of it using this mower, which has been good. I've got that, and then obviously the Japanese shears, but yeah, still's got a pretty good range of a lot of stuff that you can use. But yeah, just trying to like the trailers next to me. I'm trying to think of what else is in there, but no, most of my stuff's still.
Yeah, and I imagine that mower has a lot less maintenance than a real mower as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's got a lot less maintenance than a cylinder mower. You're not doing the what you call the backlapping of
Yeah.
like turning the blades the opposite way to sharpen them, and yeah, a lot less maintenance.
Are there any steel products that you're still got on petrol because the battery's not at the level you'd want it yet?
Yeah, so I pretty much still use my petrol brush cutter every day. The battery just it chews through the batteries pretty quick. If you're doing more residential properties, it'll be perfect, but most of my work's big acreage. So the petrol's just easy to fill it up and off you go for whatever it is, half an hour, 40 minutes when you're down the back of a 10-acre property or something. My backpack blower, I've got one of those massive backpack blowers, that's petrol. And then like your rotary hose and all that sort of stuff, obviously still petrol. And I still got my petrol combi motors for the hedging to do big reductions and with the chainsaw bit and everything like that.
Yep.
But yeah, just not really using them, just how good quality the combi motors and the battery equipment is getting.
Have you used any rotary scissors for anything?
Rotary scissors, which ones are they? The
So, like people use them instead of like the whippersnipper because they're kind of like they're two.
oh
They
yeah,
look.
yeah. I've been watching reels with them. I want to add to my steel collection. I want to give them a go. There's a few sort of conflicted sort of reviews on them, but they reckon they're good around windows and when the nice landscape designers install a lawn right next to a pebble path,
Yeah.
they would be really good.
Yeah. I wanted to get one because it looks like because you obviously with the whippersnipper you've got to get the line going through and I can't put the line in to save myself on my Ryobi petrol whippersnipper.
Yep.
But yeah, I look at they're a bit quite expensive because if you haven't got the the head already,
Yeah.
they're
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot more it's a lot just to look after my little 70 square meters of lawn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. But yeah. As I said, I've used a steel shop in Ballarat EE Day. They've been good to me lately, and every time I go in there, I walk out with a new bit of equipment. So they
Yeah.
might be on the list this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know whether they're more for like a residential market than sort
I
of bigger
I
stuff.
think so. More manicured lawns, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Do you do many lawns or is this those two main properties?
Most of my jobs have lawns, but a lot of my clients mow their own lawns. So I just do the hedging and the garden maintenance and the brush cutting, and they fly around and they ride on mower. But yeah, I do. There's a lot of jobs I do lawns. There's a fair few residential properties in Ballarat that I do that have got one's a really tiny lawn, some are medium. So yeah, most of it can be done with that fancy sort of Waybang mower, which is good.
Are there any robots kicking around on any of them?
Nah, not yet. There's probably a couple that I could probably implement them on, but yeah, as I've seen on somebody's Instagram, if you do hit the cables, they can be a bit annoying. So, um, yeah, wait for those GPS ones, I reckon.
Yeah, well, lucky Tim was there to help me that day because he helped me to lay some pavers because
Yeah,
I was it was taking way too long. So yeah, I was very appreciative of him that day.
yeah, Tim's a machine because he's got a landscape background as well. Going back to Stonefields as well, he's built pretty much the whole of Stonefields himself and does that high end maintenance. So it's awesome to learn from him with the landscaping background as well.
Yeah, when we had the tour, like the guided tour of Stonefields, so it's a tour with Paul, and Tim's there as well. And there was only myself, my apprentice, and then another couple there. Like they were from Red Hill,
Yep,
so they were like fancy, rich, and possibly going to get Paul to do a design. So as we were walking around, those two were talking to Paul, and we were talking to Tim. So just
yep.
finding out all the ins and outs of how everything's built and all that sort of thing. So yeah, he's a pretty knowledgeable man.
Yeah, you're in Stonefield's folklore, as we sort of say it, because yeah, they've never had a tour with that less people turn up.
Yeah, I
Um,
was talking to Tim, and he said Paul wanted to cancel it that morning.
yeah, yeah, he wanted to cancel it, and Tim's like, "You can't bloody cancel it now, mate. It's on the morning." But yeah, so we used to have a chuckle about that all the time, and it's small world that it happens
Yeah.
to be you all these years later.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we used to get a lot of feedback with those tours. Like they'd say, it's amazing that Paul was there to do the tour, take you around. But they said the best part was like Tim and I, and now Tim and Ryan, my replacement, actually walk around with the tour, so we can answer, the technical questions, the hedging questions, keep Paul in line as well, with what he comes up with. But yeah, I really enjoyed that as well. I've actually got a few clients from that as well, which has been good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was it was I couldn't have been more excited about it. It was just an awesome day. And it was just me and my apprentice heading to Dallasford on Valentine's Day for the weekend. So it
Oh,
was
you would
good.
have got you would have, that would have been interesting. I reckon you could have got a couple of numbers there that night.
We fit in well there.
Yeah,
Um, so what are your plans? Like, have you got any employees at the moment?
I've got one at the moment. Daria, she's 4 days a week. I'm I've been looking for an apprentice for about a year. As we go back to the talk, it's very hard to find apprentices and that sort of stuff. I do want to expand. I'd like maybe, you know, another crew on the road, but it's finding the right people, especially when it's got your own name
Mm.
on the side of the ute, or it's your business and your livelihood. You got to be very careful. But I also want to get into hedging classes in the future. So I'd like to get a good crew that can pick up my slack as well if I'm doing these hedging classes.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like you've just got a sort of mowing round that you can get someone to sort of train them up and take over it. Like you're
No,
doing high-end projects and people have got high expectations, so you can't just let anyone have a crack at it.
yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what my first boss drilled into us. We're not just there to mow the lawns, we're there to look after the property, check the irrigation. Because if you don't check an irrigation in a 40-degree week, the pots are gone, the lawn's gone. And it's big money, as we know, and a big investment. So that's their investment. And a couple of my clients, that investment is their super.
Mm.
So it's bigger in the scheme of things that people don't expect that, realize that as well.
And with the irrigation that you're looking after, do you try and get people to use like the like a hunter one so you can log in as the contractor
Yeah.
and keep an eye on them?
Yep, I'm loving the Rainbird irrigation controllers at the moment. I'm finding them easier to link to the Wi-Fi, and that the app's a lot easier to use and link with other people. I've always been a Hunter guy, but just with the current updates and that sort of stuff, I'm really liking the Rainbird Wi-Fi. And even just the little petty things, like you don't have to walk back to the controller to test a station, especially on a couple acre property when there's, like as I said today, fixing 7 leaks in a one station, walking up and down this lawn, sort of 80 meters. You just turn it on your phone and off you go. And even you can check if the client's been adjusting irrigation as well. So it's a good way to get them in trouble as well.
Yeah, why is it watering too often? That's because you changed it. 'Cause
Yeah,
yeah,
or not enough. Oh, why is it drying out? Well, on my phone, you've backed it off to every 3 days when it's 40 degrees.
yeah. Do you get alarms on there if someone changes it? Can you do that?
Probably can, but I sort of just check if I'm at the job, or every now and then, just to make sure that they are running, they're updated to the internet and the batteries or the power hasn't gone out, that sort of stuff. So I just sort of check semi regularly.
Yep. And being that you look after a certain amount of properties, are you like at your capacity now so you can't take on any projects even if you wanted to? Is that why you want to put on new staff?
Yeah. I'm just stretched too far. And as I said, now having a little 1 year old at home, I want to be at home a little bit more, because all I ever knew since I was 15 was we left at 5:30 in the morning and we didn't get home till 7, 8 o'clock at night every night. It didn't matter. So obviously now I'm in a different part of my life that I actually want to spend at home with the young bloke. Motorbikes, push bikes, help. He can help me in the veggie garden when he gets a little bit older. So that's where I want to get a little bit more help as well. Would be handy as well, where I can piss off an hour early to get home, and they can wrap up a job, or even just the extra set of hands just helps.
Yep. And what have you done with your veggie garden at home? Because I remember you talking to the one of your previous podcasts. You got something pretty fancy there.
It's it's fancy in my vision. It's just that it hasn't got there yet. But I'm actually going down to Sunshine tomorrow morning. And my mates are helping me. We're picking up a 3 by 3 meter timber shed with glass windows, and I'll put a new door in it, and that's going to be my chicken coop at the end of the veggie garden. But I've got like a weatherboard house with a wraparound veranda, the whole thing, and there's a hallway that goes down the middle of the house from the kitchen the whole way down with a Dad's built me like a barn door with glass at the top that you can open and keep the door shut at the bottom, and that overlooks the whole veggie garden. So it's pretty much a carbon copy of the veggie garden that Tim built for Paul at Stonefields with the beds all the way down the sides. So I'm currently building that at the moment. All the beds are in and giving me produce. It's all irrigated, everything like that. But I've still got to build the glass house, the chicken coop, and the chicken run, and then decide what rock I want to do in there and do a hedge around it, and then it just keeps growing. I've decided to put a clothesline next to it where I'm going to put espaliated fruit trees around, and so just keeps expanding.
Yeah, nice. Is it good soil out there?
No, not really. It's easy to work with because it's like beach sand. You
Oh,
start
really?
digging. Yeah, it's really strange how quick. Well, it's the same everywhere, but how quick the profile changes around our area. But yeah, it's like really yellowy, orangey beach sand when you dig down. So it's awesome for digging trenches because I don't have an excavator or anything, so I do everything by hand. But at least you can add organic matter and that sort of stuff, rotary hoe it, and it's good. But then, yeah, you go down probably about 600, 700 and you hit clay. So we've got enough topsoil that I can work with.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's weird because I would have thought like on the Mornings Peninsula it's like that, and same with down the Bellarine Peninsula, it's all kind of sandy.
Yeah, well, I'm up now, up near Kyneton. So
Yeah,
like Castlemaine area where I live now. So Castlemaine's obviously really rocky.
yeah.
You go to the next town over is called Malmesbury. That's where Tim lives. He's got like black pudgy soil that goes that real cracked in
Oh
summer.
yeah, yeah.
And then you get to Paul's, where it's that beautiful volcanic red soil like Dalesford, the old spud country that you put something dead in and it will grow back.
Yeah, it's crazy how different it is.
Yeah.
So is there certain like vineyards and that sort of thing where they target one of those types of soils that works better?
Yes. So the next town up from me is called Harcourt. I don't know if you remember traveling to Bendigo years ago with your parents or something up the old Calder. It's called like the Apple Central of Vic or something like that. There's
Right.
just apple trees and that sort of stuff everywhere. Then obviously when that you got the vineyards and the olives, and one of my jobs today where I was today fixing the irrigation, they've got I don't know how many olives. They've got a massive olive grove that they do their own olive oil because it's that very rocky, shaly ground. They grow really well there.
All right. So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time with the business? You hopefully have multiple crews and you're working less, or
Oh, definitely. Oh, I wouldn't say you're working less. You know that. You know, more staff means more hours, bookwork, organising, phone calls, that sort of stuff. But I would like one or two crews, and then, as I said before, I want to be doing my own hedging classes and hedging consults. So, being I come to you, teach you how to cut your balls properly, or like a business. So, someone even starting out, or someone that's been in business for a long time, but they want to take their company to the next level. I want to be able to come in, and I'm not there to cut your hedges. I'm there to teach you how to cut your hedges. So, especially the high end sort of stuff, how I've been taught is using string lines for the faces, laser levels for the tops, any equipment that we can to get those perfect hedges. I'll be there to teach you little tips and tricks how to get there and how I've been taught. So that's where I'd like to take the business as well. Sort of maybe one day a month or one day every 2 months or something like that. I could come down to Geelong and say I'll link in 4 or 5 customers and spend 2 or 3 hours with you in your own garden. Or I think Sean even said he'd love me to come down and just give him a few pointers as well. So spend 2 or 3 hours with him in his business
mm,
and do that as well. So I'd love to expand into that. I've been saying it for a while now, but I probably should start advertising it and
yeah.
getting going with it.
Yeah, I reckon there definitely would be a market for that because, like, with me doing the landscaping school, I've had a couple of businesses say they'd be keen for me to go to their business, so not only them do the course, but actually have me on site for a day because it's going to be so much different. Like, you could do an online course showing how you do it, but it's
Yeah.
nothing like
No.
actually being there in person, and then they can do a little bit and say, yeah, that's kind of right, but do it like this, and
Yeah.
it's just that instant feedback. So yeah, I reckon, and like you say, like people who've got 4 or 5 team members you can show them all how to do it, so then they're all learning from someone who's been doing the best hedging.
That's exactly right. And sort of, I got a bit of inspiration from you watching you build the landscape school as well. So, doing
Hopefully,
that.
hopefully you finish yours one day.
Oh,
I don't think you're never going to
nothing's
finish
ever
the
finished.
course.
No, nothing's ever finished, is it? Um, but yeah, it's something that I've always spoke about, and I've spoke to a lot of clients as well, or people I've met at Stonefields on the tours or Instagram, and not just companies, but yeah, like personal people, like Cass that you went up and saw at Outback Gardens as well. She said, I'd love that. And I know a lot of people that would as well.
Mm.
So getting feedback like that, I definitely should give it a go because I'm so passionate about the hedging and the high end garden maintenance. Why can't, everyone do it as well?
Yeah. 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 That's something. If I was if I was you, I'd be getting right into that because then you can the more because you got to start somewhere and
Yeah,
then your name will build that's what you do and then you can even go like interstate. Like
yeah,
people pay for it, just fly there for a day.
yeah.
Here's a few hours. See you later.
And that's the thing as well, especially like a lot of people, everybody, most people love gardening. Oh, lots of people do. They can't afford a gardener every week, but they do their own thing and yeah, just spend a half a day or 3 hours with them could mean a lot to them, especially seeing how appreciative people were at Stonefields as well, showing them how to do stuff. Or after the tour finished, you probably remember you had that hour or 2 hours to walk through the garden until Tim kicked you out because he wanted to go home. But like yeah, we would show people how to what hedge clippers we use, what still equipment we use, or those stupid poly rings. People just blow their mind that we actually use those. So
Just
like
a
just
dollar
doing little
thirty in
bits like that.
materials.
Yeah, yeah, sell them for $50, but nah, nah. But yeah, just those little things which I love doing. And as everyone, my family and mates say that I'll talk to anybody and anything. So yeah, I suit my personality as well doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and people get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Like some people want to look at like all those people you're working for, a lot of them mow their own lawns because they get the satisfaction out of it.
Yeah,
And
yep,
it's not like they need to trim their hedges or balls as much as they mow the lawn. You're only going to do it twice a year potentially. So
yeah.
it's something that's achievable for them if they know how to do it properly.
Yeah, and it's funny because you get so many people saying to me about, oh, you could be charging this or you could be charging that. Some of my best clients is like just a chippy or just an average Joe with a good business that can afford me, but I know what they're not earning billions of dollars or millions of dollars. They just want a good garden. So yeah, as you said, they're just normal people out there wanting to do a good garden as well or have fun doing it as well. A lot of my clients actually work with me most days that I'm there. They'll
All
be
right.
out next to me in the garden or I do all the cutting or the pruning. They're raking up behind me and then mowing. I'll do the brush cutting and they'll mow behind me. So
Do you charge them
yeah.
extra for that?
Oh, some clients I probably should. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had to some or think about having a viewing fee. If people are going to stand there watching your work, you got to charge them extra.
Yeah, it could work. I'd add that to the hedging classes. You could do like shirt off sort of days or that sort of stuff.
But yeah, like we've had people say, "Oh, we can help you out if you want." Like, I'm happy to mix mud or do whatever. It's like, yeah, I couldn't think of anything worse. Like,
No,
like it's not as easy as what you think it is.
no, and it's probably not a bad thing sometimes as well. Like some of my best clients, they know how hard it actually is because they've been working with me for a day, or I've got them moving 6 meters of soil into their lawn, and they just say, "How can you do this 5 to 6 days a week?" So it's good sometimes that they can actually appreciate what actually goes in. And you've been in it long enough, you know what client you're going to have when they're watching out the window, going, "Well, yeah, these guys can move."
Yeah, like I like sometimes that they've got that much of an interest in it and they want to get involved and take a lot of ownership in it. But yeah, but sometimes I just want to get the work done. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it takes me longer than I think it's going to take anyway because I'm bad at quoting. So you're not helping by getting in my way.
That's sometimes some people say I shouldn't be hourly, but it's easy with garden maintenance. I couldn't quote. I would spend 50 hours a week quoting if I was to be on hourly, especially with working in the same gardens nearly every week. But yeah, if they want to chat to me for 45 minutes and they want to pay for it, so be it. That's a win in my books.
Yeah, like I always knock people back for a coffee, but you always like, yeah, I'll have one. Yep, give us a
Yeah,
dollar.
yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Do you want me to come inside as well? Or yeah, I can move that. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Andy from Leaf by Leaf, he likes getting ice cream and beer in the first thing in the morning, I've heard from one of his
Oh
clients.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, that's crazy that thing, but it's true. Like especially in the property maintenance game and the high end property maintenance game, as we've talked about the trust and dealing with the clients every day, and a lot of them you are dealing with fortnightly or weekly. My old boss said, "You just do whatever they ask. Yeah, go move that couch, go do that because no one else is going to do it, or we may as well get paid for it than them get somebody else within reason. Like you're not going to do something that's going to hurt you or dangerous or well above what we're qualified to do. But yeah, especially it's you get some weird requests.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, have you had any weird stories over the years? Like, Andy's got like eight, I reckon. When I did an episode with weird client stories, I think half of them were from him.
Oh, probably on the start, I could probably think of them as soon as we finish this Zoom. I would probably think of them, but just we saw a lot in Turak. Yeah, like we saw a lot, especially being so young and we were in there so much. It was we had a ball, but then yeah, to some of the stories, from Stonefields or what Tim and I would come up with, or yeah, it's as you know, it gets a long in winter. It's a long day, so the stuff that you start coming up with at the end of a rainy day, or we got so many $1 million ideas that never eventuate,
Yeah.
or it's a weird industry.
Yeah. Did you find the clients in Turak were appreciative of what you were doing, or were they more sort of expecting things?
From the start, we were in a weird sort of zone. As I said, we were so young, and a lot of us were apprentices with a few of the senior guys. And I think before me, a few of the senior guys left. So we used to get the odd, Ross, your boys are too young. Your boys are too young. And we were, but as my boss said, these are the best I've got. They are trained my way and they just do it. They do the job and they'll work until 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock at night because we didn't have kids back then. We just worked. But then as we obviously got older and we grew with the clients, it totally changed. It was, I love these boys. You've got the best crew. And it come down, as I said, with trust again. It was just, and being 15, I grew up with a lot of them as well. Like they saw me from a 15-year-old kid to a fully qualified 18-year-old to a 22, 23-year-old sort of young man, sort of going through their properties or multiple properties. Yeah, they got to see a lot of it as well.
Mm. Yeah. Well, you can be old and useless. It doesn't matter. Your age doesn't
No,
get me.
no,
Yeah.
and seeing Ross cut a hedge, he can see why he had us boys cutting hedges. He was atrocious. Like, because he wasn't doing it every day as well. He was always running around. He was sort of the Mr. Fix It, fixing irrigation, checking jobs to make sure us boys were doing the right thing and doing all the running around. So that was good for him. He could deal with clients and that. And then, yeah, us 6 or 7 boys were just running amok through Turak. But then as it started changing, as I said, we sort of got older. And one of Ross's original apprentices, Luke, his name was, come back. Would have been about 18 or not. I think I might have been 17 or 18 when Luke come back. And he started with Ross when he was 17, worked for him for about 5 or 6 years. I think that must have been in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Might have been a bit later, but I don't know how old Luke is now. And that sort of changed again when we got him in. A few of the clients are like, oh, yeah, we've got a few older heads and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. But what I learned from Luke as well was really good because he had that landscape background as well and just a different sort of head to deal with some days as well, which was good.
Yep. And last question for you, Remy, who do you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast?
Oh, anyone with the garden maintenance scene as well, like me, I love listening to your podcast with like-minded sort of people as well. Like I love listening to Andy. Maybe get Sean on.
Yep.
Even Jake, who's running Anderson's landscaping now. Like sort of those, I like listening to those as well. So that could be
Actually,
handy.
it's not the last question because I've got one more for you. But because I was talking to Hayden from Varaya Gardening about this, and it blows my mind how they work. But you've got one of those big tripod ladders as
Yeah,
well. I think I
yeah,
heard yours is like 3.7 meters or something.
yeah. Mine's it's 11 or 12 foot, and I'm thinking about buying a bigger one. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I
yeah,
like Hayden sent me videos about how it works, but I just
yeah.
don't understand how they don't fall over.
Oh, they are the most sturdiest ladders ever. They are amazing. So we had a few of them with Ross back in the day as well, and we had massive normal ladders, step ladders as well, and these as well. And just they're so light, you can like even like with your background there, you can get the tripod part into the garden without doing damage with the two legs, and yeah, they're amazing. I want to buy a new one this year as well,
Yeah.
another one.
Because one would come in handy because I've got like a cloud prune olive. So
Yep,
it's massive. So I need to get like I have to get like, a hedger with the extension on it to
yep.
get the ones at the top. But if I could get one of them, I could get in there with an actual normal sized hedger. But
Oh, they're just amazing because with the tripod, as I was saying as well, you can actually get the leg pretty much under the olive, and you've got the ladder in the hedge or in the plant or in the olive
yeah,
tree, like anywhere. But yeah, I'd recommend it to everyone.
yeah. Well, that was a different last question, but thank you very much for coming on. Absolutely love chatting to you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you starting up your hedging school.
Yeah, you might be my first customer. Yeah,
Thanks, Remy.
thank you.